Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/I Don't Work Here, Lady. We have 3 great stories today, so I'm hoping for your likes, and let's get started. Our first story. I don't work here. I don't work for you, and unless you really impress me, you don't work here either. Many years ago, when my knees still worked and there was more hair on my head than on my chin, I had a really cool job. I worked as a hatchet man. Sadly, that doesn't mean I worked for the mafia hitting people with axes. I worked for a small company that was employed by large companies that needed to downsize, but wanted all of the anger from that downsizing aimed at outside corporate management. We all good so far? Good. My bosses gave us a lot of leeway in how we researched the companies we were sent to, and we all developed our own style. Mine was to get the large company to bring me in as a new minion in which every department was having the most issues. I would then spend 4 to 6 weeks doing minion work, listening to folks gripe and seeing where changes need to be made. You also get a real good look at the true character of the management. A lot of the worst are very different when they're talking to a superior and a junior. More than one company was profoundly shocked when I went in and fired a third of the junior management, half the senior, and merged departments. They thought I was going to be firing minions, not bosses. One company stands out to me, and I wanted to share a magical moment of purest joy with you all. I was brought in on the shipping floor of a large warehouse. One of the reasons I was hired is that I had a lot of experience in low-end jobs when I was younger, followed by extensive experience in assorted management roles. Day one, there I am in store-brand jeans and t-shirt, and the floor supervisor hands me a manual I could have used to beat down a Badger Lord in full-plate armor. This thing was insane. I looked with confusion at the super, and he explained that was indeed the operating manual for putting toys in boxes and then sticking an address label on the side. That first week would have been pure hell if this was my actual job. Everything was insanely overcomplicated, which led to incorrect orders being sent, and staff were actually getting wage penalties for low accuracy. Anyway, a little chatting with my coworkers at lunch, and I find out that the new warehouse manager was some sort of relation to the owners who had a degree from some fancy business school and had been brought in almost a year back, fresh out of uni, and given this position. Power had gone to her head, and her total lack of any kind of experience had quickly left her in the crap. Realizing she was neck deep and sinking fast, she panicked, drove out the veteran management that could have helped her, and just flailed wildly, often wandering out into the warehouse to nitpick over details that didn't matter, scream at employees, and never in high vis, red flag, red flag, red flag. Now, don't get me wrong, the business had other issues, and this wasn't going to be a quick fix, but I pretty much identified problem number 1. So, 4 weeks in, I'd identified where they were losing money shipping. Their shipper was absolutely effing them on prices through a loophole in the contract, learned that over beer and pool with the shipping guys, and a couple other minor issues, and I was ready to take the gloves off and really get stuck in. Now, bear in mind that for the last 4 weeks, this lady had seen me 6 days a week wearing scuffed steelies and own-brand clothing. She blew up at me a couple times for reminding her that high vis was required, but I hadn't made a huge impression. Monday morning, I walk in at 9 a.m., start of office hours. She blew up. She tore into me about being 3 hours late for my shift, that she could fire and replace me like that. She loved that threat, yada yada yada. Then she started to run down as she noticed a few details. Like my normally mussed hair was perfectly styled. I was clean shaven and not scraggly. I was wearing a $1,500 designer suit and hand-stitched Italian shoes. Princesses notice labels. Good morning, I said. I'm some English guy 111 from Ketchum Guttum and Laugh. Here's my business card. Her face now looked like week-old porridge. Office rumors had been rife as word had leaked that my company was coming in, and this is a moment that even all these years later still brings a warm, happy feeling to the cockles of my dark and crusty heart. Young lady, I don't work here. I don't work for you. And unless you absolutely impress me over the next couple of weeks, you won't work here either. The rest of the office were staring in a mix of shock and glee as I led her into her office, sat in her chair, and took a large pad from my briefcase, gift from my boss. Turns out she wasn't a bad kid, just scared and in over her head. Once she realized that I didn't have an axe to grind and not only could help her, but would, she was actually kind of sweet, latched onto me like a puppy with separation anxiety. I worked with her to fix her insane rules and crappy behavior. We got rid of a couple of genuinely toxic folk and basically turned the place around. I swear the best bit of that job was watching the faces of crappy toxic folk, bullies, and lazy twats as they walked into the office, whichever office I was in, and realized that the new guy that they'd been jerks to was deciding their fate. I loved that. I don't know how else to explain to you, I've quit. Was reading this sub and remember this story from about 3 years ago. It was my second year of university and I got a job at a local interior design studio that specialized in custom-made closets. It was also a retail boutique that sold like IKEA stuff, but this was expensive and bougie and obviously way nicer quality. Basically was pushing my resume everywhere and they were the first ones to call me back about being a sales associate with them. So it was me, an interior designer, and the owner, who was also an interior designer. Also worth mentioning, I was getting an art degree and have zero background or experience in design or interior decorating. Cast me, my psycho boss. So I start working there, pays great, and they aren't open late. About 3 months, I burn out, physically. The job was way above a basic retail associate position. I was my boss's personal assistant. It was at that point I was doing design work and meeting with clients regularly. I dealt with all the in-store selling and personal for her. I worked 8-hour shifts 6 days a week while being a full-time student, and obviously for some people it's necessary or doable, but not what I was looking for. I wasn't a designer or a personal assistant. I wanted casual hours at a retail gig. Whatever though, I resigned. Handed my resignation letter, get my last paycheck, get taken off the schedule. I was done, right? Wrong. The following is the day following my last shift. Phone call from my former boss. Hey, I just got into the store. Why aren't you here? Me. Yesterday was my last shift, remember? Well, I thought you'd still be here this morning. Why haven't you scheduled the XYZ consultations or done ABC or unpacked the last shipment of stock? I only did those things when I was working for you. My boss was not comprehending. Okay, well, could you please schedule those consultations and drop off some samples to their locations? If you could also do some measurements while you're there. I literally handed you my resignation and told you why I was quitting. My boss says, I know, but you still need to do these things for me until we find a replacement. What? I'm off the payroll. I don't work for you. And you were interviewing people yesterday while I was working to replace me. My boss, this is really unprofessional. You can't get away with this kind of behavior in this business. Me. I explained to you why I quit. I'm not at all qualified to do the job you've tasked me with, and I'm not looking for this heavy a workload right now. Again, I explained this to you. Moreover, I don't want to work in this business. My boss. This is unacceptable. The girl we hired won't be able to be trained for a while. Until she can take over, you're obligated to continue to help me. I just hung up. She called multiple times and I just ignored her. She kept emailing me and I emailed back outlining step by step how and why I was no longer her employee and was not obligated to continue working. She wasn't having it, so I ended up blocking her email, number. She even called my parents' house a few times where I was living until we blocked her. I don't work for you full-time anymore, so you need to pay me a freelance rate to fix your problem. I'd been working as a consultant on a major project for a tech firm. I was the subject matter expert on the system, an antiquated database program that was basically obsolete and which this company kept around mostly for convenience. I'd been with the company about a year and only ended up as the SME on that system because the other SMEs had quit. Why, you ask? Well, the project manager over the product using that system, Jim, was a nightmare. Lack of communication, flexible due dates that spanned weeks and threw curveballs at the last minute, demands of time tracking and multiple systems, none of which were actually utilized unless they were trying to prove someone was doing something wrong. It was a mess. I found another job and put in my notice, a full 3 weeks notice, just to make sure they could find someone else. They never scheduled me to train anybody, so I assumed they found someone who had experience in the system. I turned in my keys and computer and left. About a week later, I got a call from Jim. We need you to come in and fix an issue we're having. I'm sorry, I don't work there anymore, I said, thinking that maybe the manager had forgotten. I know, but we don't have anybody here who can fix the system, so we need you. He explained the issue. It was a few hours work fix. All right, if you would like me to work on the system, I am willing to help, but I'll have to charge you by the hour at a contract rate, and it'll have to be after hours because I have a new full-time job. The manager balked. No, you'll come in and work at my original hourly rate. No, I explained as carefully as I could. First, since I'm not your full-time employee anymore, I have none of your full-time benefits. Second, this will be after hours and, from my perspective, overtime work. So again, I'm happy to help you, but it'll be at new rate per hour. That's stupid. You know how to fix this. This should be easy for you. I'm not paying you a new rate for something you already did at the old rate. At this point, I lost my patience. I'm not bartering with you. Take my rate or don't. Next time you call, it'll go up. Now, listen here, you F. I hung up. He called back immediately. I picked up the phone. I need you to come fix this now, he seethed into the phone. I can't do that, I said politely. My new rate is $50 an hour. You can't do that, Jim shouted. I'm not paying you extra to $75 an hour. No, your effing new rate, $100 per hour. Keep going, Jim. I have all day. There was a really long pause. I'll do that, but nothing more. I'll be honest with you guys, I really considered doubling down for the elevated rate, but at the same time, I know a win when I see it, so I took the job. I assume he did find a new expert because I never did another job for him again. Hope you guys enjoyed the stories. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button for future videos. I'll see you soon.